Steve, all things are rosy. It's an unchanged starting 15. Was that always going to be the case?
Yep.
You must be very comfortable going into this final with an unchanged 15. How helpful is that stability?
Well, that was been the plan. You know, like we wanted to get some stability, and we've worked towards that over the 4 years that we've been together. We've looked to bring players in when we've needed to and give them experience, and we've got a good group of men who have played a large number of tests, and we've got another group who have played an extraordinarily large number. And then when we came to this tournament, we wanted to try and get to the business end of the tournament pretty solid on our selection. So we've been fortunate enough to be able to do that because our medical crew and the players have worked really hard on their recovery and had very limited injuries, so very lucky.
You mentioned the experience. 7 of this starting 15 started the World Cup final 4 years ago. How important do you think experience will be this weekend?
It doesn't matter what you do in life, experience is massive. And there's 2 types of experiences, the ones you learn from and the ones you don't. So hopefully we've learned enough over the time being. And, when you've got experience and that experience is in good form, I think it's a big advantage.
Steve, David Pocock and Michael Hooper have been a thorn in the side of the opposition, either individually or in tandem. Do they pose a threat, a worrying threat for the All Blacks, which you guys maybe haven't met yet through this tournament?
Look, they're obviously a threat along with Fardy. I think Fardy's playing really well too, and as a combination they're working well. And whilst we haven't had the experience of meeting them in this tournament so far, we've played them twice prior to this in the Rugby Championship and the deciding Bledisloe Cup. And again, whilst they didn't start with the same 3 loosies in the second test, they brought them on in the second half. So, Australia have got enough good players for us to be worried about all of them, not just a couple. So it would be very foolish if we just focus on 2. But you've got to give them credit; they're doing a good job for their team.
Yep. Just in the middle here, Steve. What's been the biggest challenge for you and the coaching staff this week?
Not getting too excited too early. Just got to quietly build day by day, and the business part of the week is Saturday, and that's the fun part. So it's just making sure that we don't get carried away with ourselves because it's a final and do things different. The formula's pretty proven for us. We know what works for us. Maybe different for other teams, but we know what works for us and sticking to that, and making good decisions.
Are you intrigued by the fact that the Wallabies appear not to be calling you the All Blacks, or are you just not taking notice of that stuff?
I didn't know that, so they can call us whatever they want. Being Aussies, they probably will.
Yep.
Steve, where do you place Dan Carter over the last year? Because he's had these injury problems. We know, of course, what playing and winning in a World Cup final would mean to him. But considering the problems he had, where he was going into the Bledisloe Cup, where do you place Dan's contribution over the last few months?
Well, firstly, to answer your first part of your question, well, he has, up until this season, he's had an horrific run of injuries, over a couple of seasons, which took away his confidence. Up until then, he'd been relatively injury-free and everything touched turned to gold. And if you're around long enough, you're going to have a bit of adversity. And he's had 2 seasons of it prior to this year, and it's the mark of the guy. I think how he's come through that. A lot of people might have just said, "Well, enough's enough," and I'll chuck it in. But he's stuck with it, and he's the big thing this season is he's had the ability to play game after game after game, and it doesn't matter who you are. Confidence is a massive a thing in sport, and you get that through playing out on the pitch, and you get it through playing well. And when you start to play well, it's like a bit of a snowball. It gets bigger and bigger, and it all of a sudden becomes an avalanche. And he's played well and started to really get his inner confidence and his inner self-belief. And when he's like that, he's a pretty special player. So he's a special part of the team, and we're looking forward to him going around on Saturday.
And do you think just for him, because he missed out in 2011, being on the field in a winning All Black team on Saturday will complete his career for him?
There was a lot being made of that, but you know, his performance against Argentina in the quarter-final was superb. You know, I thought he played really, really well. I'm hoping he played in that game. It might have been the French game actually, in the round robin. He played, you know, he played really, really well, and you know, unfortunately he got injured, but he still played a big part in that team winning the tournament. Will he feel better if he gets to play in the final? Of course he will. You know, and if we're good enough to win it, then again he'll feel good about that too, because you know, it's different than being injured and watching it. But you know, there's still a lot of work for us to do yet, and that hasn't happened. So we'll have to earn the right to do it, just like we had to earn the right to get in the final.
Steve, this is going to be Richie's last game, probably ever. At this time, could you just make a comment or two about his contribution to the All Blacks over the last 14 years?
Well, it's pretty well documented, what I think. I think he's probably the greatest player we've ever had play the game, certainly for New Zealand anyway. As a leader, you know, he copped a fair bit of flack in 07. He was a young leader at that point, and you know, in my mind, leaders aren't made; they're growing. Like you're not born a leader. You actually learn through your experiences, and a lot of those experiences can be negative ones that you have to learn pretty sharply from. So he copped a lot of flack in 07. He's grown from that. He showed through that adversity to come back, and he's now probably one of the great leaders of all time. To go with being a great player, and he's a good bloke, so he's got the trifecta.
I know it's a little way away, but are you thinking of tapping him on the shoulder to use him as part of your team in 16 and 17?
Oh, look, I haven't even got that far. I can't think past Saturday. Get a headache otherwise.
Steve, can you just talk a little bit about Ma? I mean, obviously you didn't bring Ma to the 07 World Cup. What was he like then? How's he changed and how's he developed as an All Black?
Well, Ma didn't come in 07, and I think since then he's matured into a wonderful rugby player. Back in 07 and probably prior to that, he was a rugby player who was up and down with his form, up and down with his fitness, had a narrow skill base, or narrower than it is today, but you know, he's one of the most fittest guys I've got on the team. He's got a skill base which is, you know, to die for. He's not just a big ball carrier. He can offload. He can kick, and he's matured into a very good leader. And whilst he doesn't say a lot, when he does speak, it's reasonably worthwhile listening to it. So, and they're the sorts of things you expect from a guy who's been around as long as he has been. And you know, along with Conrad and Sonny Bill, you know, it gives us a massive advantage, I think, in midfield. You know, three of the best players in the world probably. You know, Sonny's doing a great job coming off the bench, finishing the games out, and you know, it can't be easy for teams when you think, well, we just got rid of Conrad Smith, and oh God, now we've got Sonny Bill, or we just got rid of Nonu, and oh God, now we've got Sonny Bill. And then we've got another bloke in the seats as well, and Malachi Fikatoa, who's going to be a good player too. So Ma's played a big part in helping Sonny change over from league to rugby, and he's also played a big part in Malachi's maturing and you know, getting better as a player. So you know, he's got a special place in New Zealand rugby folklore. He's upset a few people along the way sometimes, but that's the character you get. But I think, you know, you've got a more complete man than we used to have.
Willie? Yep.
Steve down the back. You've spoken in the past about how it can be quite tough for teams and players to play 4 or 5 big games, you know, back to back, week in, week out. This will be the Wallabies' 5th in as many weeks. What sort of effect do you think that could have on this contest?
I don't know. I think you better ask Michael Checker that. Yeah, they're sitting in, you know, in their hotel and doing their press conference when they have it, if they haven't already had it, and they'll be feeling the same things we are. You know, there's no doubt that they'll have a massive hunger to get the job done. They've got a massive amount of talent. You know, they've had a tough tournament, as has, you know, everybody that's been in it. And but you're in the final, and you're where you want to be. Like, every other team that came here would want to be where we're sitting and where they're sitting. So I don't think that'll be an issue for them. You know, they've worked really hard on their game, and they're bringing plenty to the park. So we'll have to bring plenty to match it.
Nice, yep.
Yeah, Steve, just very quickly before I ask another question, can you clarify, are you saying that Wyatt wasn't in the 23 before he had the injury, or he was in the 23?
No, he was. He's in the reserves, but then he broke down this morning,
Okay.
so he got replaced by Benny.
Okay, thank you. My question for you is this World Cup been easier being a head coach than as an assistant coach?
Oh, it's always easier no matter what you're doing if you're the boss, isn't it? Yeah, I think it has been for me. It has. Yep.
How come?
How come? Oh, I don't know. I think if you're, you know, by nature, I probably am better suited to being the person who's sitting at the top of the tree rather than the one at halfway up it. And you know, whilst both roles have got different roles, but when you're at the top of the tree, you get to drive the bus the way you want it driven, and you want it, you know, certain things that you are happy to negotiate with and happy not to. And you know, I think when you're halfway up the tree, you know, you've got to disagree and commit sometimes. And saying that, like, we run this team with a, you know, pretty open forum where everyone gets the opportunity to say what they think, and you know, I think that's massively important. I've said before, like, we've got a sweet spot group that features myself, Gil Denoka, and Darren Shand and Fozzie, and you know, shared leadership in that way, I think, allows us to make better decisions. And it's all about, every decision is based on us playing well on Saturdays. So whilst I can sit here and say I'm the boss, really, you know, there's a lot of bosses, and we work all together, and my job is to try and facilitate an environment where we get that performance on Saturday. So it's nice to be able to do that.
Yep.
Steve, it'd be nice if the final was being played in the evening here in England, so an entire nation, and indeed Australia, didn't have to stay up all night to watch it. Stamina needed.
Yeah, well, probably when the organisers organised it, they didn't think Australia and us would be in it. So, oh well, wiser man than me.
Steve, just here in the middle, in the back.
Yep.
Have you met Joel Judge this week, and have you the answer you expect about the lot of penalties you have last week?
Yeah, no, I spoke to him on the phone, and I hadn't met him personally, just spoke to him on the phone, and it was good. Got a bit of clarification on a couple of things, and as usual, the referee's always right.
No details?
Pardon?
No details about the phone?
No. Can't give away too many secrets.
Yep, in the front.
Steve, just here. What does it mean for you personally to be the coach of the All Blacks, and how proud would you be leading your team to Twickenham on Saturday?
Oh, look, I've been asked this question a few times, and the answer's always the same. It's you know, it's a feeling of humbleness and being grateful to be given an opportunity to. I was always grateful just to be the assistant coach, and then to be given the great honour of being able to lead the team is very humbling, and comes with a lot of responsibility, and you don't want to let it down, and so once you get over the initial impact of the dauntingness of it, because it is quite daunting to be involved with the All Blacks, because you're expected to win all the time, and there's a lot of pressure that comes with being involved. Once you realise that's just going to be there anyway, it's a great place to be, and if you enjoy coaching as I do, and I'm a New Zealander, so there's not a better team in the world to be part of because of that. But it's very humbling, and I'll be forever grateful to my family for giving me the time and opportunity to be able to do it, and grateful to New Zealand Rugby Union for giving me the opportunity as well.
We've got time for two more, Sav.
Steve, speaking of family, I know your dad was a massive influence on you and was a very good coach in his own right. Is there still, say, one piece of advice that he gave you with regards to rugby coaching that rings in your ears to this day?
Yeah, you get all your options off the opposition. You might have to go away and think about that, Sav. I think, with a look on your face, but if you just take some time out in a slow, quiet place, I think you'll work it out.
Thanks for having faith.
Yeah.
Sorry, no last question, Liam. There's no microphone, so big voice.
Well, look, how we got here probably is irrelevant. You know, the fact is we got here, and the same applies to Australia. You know, how they've got here, yeah, they've had a few bumps and adversity builds you though, but what I think Australia have done in the last 12 months is, you know, they've really had a look at themselves and how they want to be seen and made some really good changes. They've got real clarity in how they want to play the game. You know, so Michael Checker and his crew can take a bow there. I think they've done a great job. And it's great for rugby because, you know, we need as many strong nations playing this game as possible. And you know, Australia are one of the teams that we'd expect to be strong all the time. So, you know, they seem to have got their house in order and are playing accordingly.